In last week's episode, we talked about the Netflix epic streamable series and whether or not it is our model media. Let's see what you had to say. Thibauld Nuyten asks for some clarification, and I think that this is a really good question, and is something that I kind of wanted to spend some time on in the episode, but didn't really have the time for and just kind of threw it out there and let it fly, which is, what is the difference between watching something and streaming something? And I want to get out in front of this now that I've gotten far behind it and say, I don't think I actually know, and I would be really interested to hear what everybody else has to say and whether or not you perceive a difference. But I will say this. So, you know, I live in New York, I go to the laundromat, I don't have like laundry in my building, and when I'm at the laundromat, I get to watch like the trashiest cable TV that's on is always what they have on at the laundromat. And I have noticed the last couple times that I have been, there are ads for the TV shows that are on, you know, whatever the like major networks are. And there are times where they say, they'll like be advertising a show, watch this new show, watch the premiere, watch this, that, or the other thing, or stream it. And of course, stream, they never use in relationship to broadcast times or broadcast television, but watch they use for both television and, you know, a more internet-based viewing experience. And I wonder whether or not there's a copy editor somewhere that has a rubric and they're like, ah yes, this is watching and this is streaming. Oh, but this is wrong and this is not right. So yeah, I feel like the easy answer is, oh, one is the internet and one is not, but I feel like there's maybe more to it than that. Phelanii, or maybe Phelanii, says that it is maybe not the Netflix series that is our model media, but the epic series itself across whatever medium or media it happens to, you know, have instances within. So it is comic books, movies, television, books, and so on and so forth. And I think that there is a fair amount of maybe support for this claim, but I would say, and this is something that we sort of touched upon and then moved past in the episode, you could argue that the reason we see more of these epic series in more formats is the success that it is currently experiencing in, you know, television, or, you know, television style things. But yeah, I think that you can make a really strong case for the fact that there is a kind of weight of a story or style of story that is perhaps being influenced more by the way people seem to want to consume media, regardless of what that media is. Stelios P left a comment confidently asserting that video games were in fact the model media and used esports to justify that claim. And I pinned it because I figured it would inspire a good conversation, and it did. So if you have some time to read, I would recommend going to check that out. It's a sort of good back and forth about where people perceive video games lying in the continuum of, you know, important formats. But you know, my response to this, which you can see if you read the thread, is, one, I'm not exactly clear on how esports justifies the idea that video games are the kind of impactful medium that that Stelios P seems to be claiming. But furthermore, I think, you know, even if you move beyond esports to the grandest of the grand stories being told in the video game genre, or in the video game format, the most important works, the saturation of game players, the sort of cultural fervor that surrounds it, I think that those things are not insignificant by a long shot. There are great stories being told with video games. There is a lot of important work being done with them, and there is a huge, you know, obviously, I don't even need to say this, group of people who play video games. That being said, though, I don't necessarily think that they're there yet. And I think that by claiming video games are, at this point, already the model media of our time and place, you do them a little bit of a disservice by not allowing them the opportunity to grow into that role. And that, I think there are a lot of people, if you read the comments, who are hopeful about video games eventually making it to that point where it is our string quartet, our, you know, our golden age of television, our golden age of cinema, you know, our portraiture, whatever you want to consider a, you know, a weighty piece of media, a weighty piece of work, but it's not quite there yet. I will say that in some of my responses in that thread, one of the things that I mentioned was narrative and the importance of narrative and the stories being told by model pieces of media. And Head Roaster asked a really good question, or provided a really good counterpoint, which is that if we want to talk about chamber music or the string quartet or something like it being a kind of model work of an age, you know, Vienna in the 17th or 18th century, then, you know, what does story have to do with anything? And I think that this is a good challenge, and I appreciate it. I mean, what I would say is that a lot of the way chamber music works is that it's very narrative. It doesn't have characters or plot in the way that we tend to consider those things existing in movies and television, et cetera, et cetera. But that it does have that sort of, build up and denouement to it, and that it does tell a story in some way. But I do want to say that I don't think it is necessarily the case that a model media tells as tidy a story as, say, you know, a TV show or a movie might. Bumblebeemagnify makes a really good case for user-generated content, and YouTube specifically, as perhaps our model media. And I think that there is almost maybe a competing slot that, you know, the next piece of model media after, you know, if you agree with me, after the Epic series or after television, may in fact be either user-generated material, user-generated content like YouTube stuff, or video games, and that there is a kind of diverging path that could exist in the near future, or, you know, a decade or two away, where, you know, we reach this inflection point where what takes over the collective conscious as far as what defines our age, you know, those two things vie. It's people making YouTube videos, or whatever the version of YouTube videos is at that point, or it's games and game studios. Alan Gebhardt asked a question that, again, I responded to in the comment thread, but I'm bringing it up here because I'm really curious to know what other people think. He asked whether or not Breaking Bad was in some way the first streamable series, and my response was that I originally in the episode wanted to make a case that the first streamable series was actually the Aqua Teen Hunger Force, because that was the first thing that I can remember all of my friends watching in large chunks via the internet, and that it felt very much like a streamed series. But I would be willing to be argued with on that point, and would be really curious to hear what people think of as being the first. Alan says Breaking Bad. I think also a contender.
I think Homestar Runner.
Oh, Morgan says Homestar Runner, and that also, wait, Homestar Runner or Strong Bad Emails?
Strong Bad Emails?
Yeah, right? I think this is a good sort of trifecta of possibilities. Janjanfollower just writes, I think, a really nice comment that kind of summarizes a lot of the themes of what we might view as the most successful or important streamed series, epic television, third golden age examples, whatever, and concludes based upon those themes that it does, in fact, maybe resemble our time. We do get a picture of what a certain cross-section of our priorities are, and that, in fact, is maybe a little heartening and provides a little hope. And I just wanted to point this comment out to say, maybe go check it out. A link to this one and all the others in the description. And finally, the Firebear points out one series that has maybe taken the best advantage over the way that it is consumed by its audience, and how it has responded to the way people want to consume media, and that is the Venture Brothers. And I'm only bringing this up to say that I agree, and that if you don't watch the Venture Brothers, you should, and that I think that the Venture Brothers is amongst, if not the best written narratively shows, best narratively written shows is the order in which those words should go, as far as exactly that, like how people will want to watch it, how it unfolds, how the seasons relate to one another. It is just a masterpiece This is now just a Venture Brothers endorsement. That's why it's at the end.